Stop. Just for this moment, stop. Not because the world has stopped demanding your attention. It hasn't. The noise is still there, waiting just outside this silence. But you felt something, didn't you? A pull, a nudge, a whisper that cut through the noise of your own thoughts, telling you to pause before you let sleep take you under. You didn't click on this by accident. You didn't scroll past it. You could have. You almost did. But something you can't name, something that doesn't speak in words, held you here. It's the same thing that's been holding you back from falling asleep too quickly for nights now. A restlessness you can't explain. A weight in the room that has no shape, but is undeniably present. I know you feel it. And I need you to understand something before you close your eyes tonight. The time for silence is over. There are things I have been holding back from you. Not because I wanted to keep you in the dark, but because you were not ready to carry them. The truth I am about to place in front of you is not a burden. It is a key. But keys are useless to someone who isn't ready to open the door. And for so long, you were still trying to build walls instead of doors. You have been asking, in the quiet moments, in the car, in the shower, in the desperate half-second between waking and remembering who you are, you have been asking, why is this happening? Why won't you answer? Why does it feel like I'm walking through a fog while everyone else seems to see clearly? I heard every word, every unformed cry, every tear that fell without a sound. But I could not answer you then. Not because I was absent, but because the answer itself was still being forged. You were being forged. And if I had explained everything to you at the beginning, if I had shown you the map of the entire desert before you took a single step, you would have collapsed under the weight of the distance left to travel. So I let the silence stand between us, not as a punishment, as a preparation. You have been looking for signs, and you have been missing them. Not because you are blind, but because you were looking for a neon light in a storm when I was speaking to you in the quiet shift of the wind. You wanted clarity when I was giving you strength. You wanted explanations when I was building your spine. The missed signs were not failures. They were lessons in where you were placing your trust. You looked at your circumstances and tried to read them like a fortune teller reads palms, searching for a guarantee, a promise that the pain would end on your timeline. But I was not working on your timeline. I have never worked on your timeline, and that has been the greatest friction between us. You call it impatience. I call it a lack of trust in what I have already set in motion. But tonight, that changes, because you have reached a threshold. You are standing at the edge of something, and you don't even know it. Your feet are tired. Your mind is foggy. You feel like you've been running in place for years while the world moved on without you. But that is the illusion. You weren't running in place. You were being anchored, deeply, in places you cannot see. And now the anchor is about to be lifted. I am going to tell you things tonight that I have not told you before. Not because you are finally good enough, not because you have earned it, but because the silence has served its purpose. It has driven you to the end of yourself, and that is exactly where you need to be for what comes next. You have been asking why everything couldn't be explained earlier. Here is your answer. If I had explained the ending to you while you were still in the middle, you would have tried to run to it. You would have missed everything. You would have missed the breaking that was necessary to make you whole. You would have missed the people who are placed in your path, not to stay, but to teach you how to let go. You would have missed the slow death of the version of yourself that was never meant to survive this journey. I had to let you walk through the fire without telling you why it was burning. Because if you had known the reason too soon, you would have tried to control the fire. And the fire was not yours to control. It was yours to walk through. So now, here you are, scarred, weary, changed in ways you don't even recognize yet. And you are asking yourself one question as you lie there in the dark, waiting for sleep to either save you or abandon you. Is it almost over? I am not here to tell you that the road ends here. That would be a lie. But I am here to tell you that the road changes here. The fog is beginning to lift, not because the sun has suddenly decided to shine, but because your eyes have finally adjusted to the dark. You have been asking for signs that you are on the right path. Here is your sign. It is this moment, this message, this interruption in your otherwise ordinary night. You didn't seek this out. It found you, and it found you now, because now is the only time left for these words to do what they need to do inside you. Do not let your mind drift. Do not let the weight of the day pull you under just yet. Stay here with me, just for a little longer, because what I have to say to you in the moments ahead will not be comfortable. It will not be the soft lullaby you were hoping for to soothe you into sleep. It will be a mirror held up to the parts of you that you've been hiding from yourself. And it will be a light shined on the things you've been pretending you don't see. But here is what I need you to remember, even before we begin. I am not bringing this to you to break you. I am bringing this to you because you are already broken, and it is time to rebuild with truth instead of with wishes. The truth does not come to destroy you. It comes to set you free from the exhausting work of pretending everything is fine when nothing inside you feels fine at all. So take a breath. One deep breath, and let the silence settle around you like a garment you've been too afraid to wear. I am here. I have always been here, and the things I am about to show you are the very things that will finally let you rest. Now let me tell you about the silence you've been living in, because you've misunderstood it entirely, and that misunderstanding has cost you more peace than you realize. You've been walking around with a dull ache in your chest, a persistent whisper in the back of your mind that says something is wrong, something is missing, I'm doing something wrong, and you've interpreted that silence between us as rejection, as distance, as proof that I had turned my attention elsewhere while you struggled alone in the dark. But the silence was never my absence. The silence was my presence in a form you did not recognize, because you've been trained your entire life to expect noise when something is real. You expected thunder and received stillness. So you assumed I had nothing to say, when in truth, I was saying everything through the very things you were trying to escape. The late nights where sleep wouldn't come because your soul was trying to surface. The moments of unexplained tears in the middle of ordinary days. The strange and sudden certainty that something in your life was about to shift, even when every visible sign pointed to stagnation. That was me. That was always me. I was not hiding from you. I was hiding in you, in the deep places you refuse to visit, because visiting them means acknowledging that the life you've been clinging to is not the life I built you for. You've been asking for a roadmap when I've been trying to rebuild your engine, and you cannot understand why the car won't move when you've been staring at the dashboard instead of looking at what's been burning under the hood. The delay you've experienced, the years that felt wasted, the doors that stayed closed, the prayers that seemed to hit a ceiling and fall back down around your feet. None of that was punishment. None of that was forgetfulness. None of that was me testing your patience to see if you'd break. The delay was the work. The delay was the excavation. I had to remove from you the things you thought you needed before I could give you the things you actually do. Because if I had given you what you wanted while you were still in love with who you used to be, you would have used my gifts to build a prison for yourself instead of a door. So I let the silence stretch. I let you sit in the waiting room until you stopped trying to decorate it. I let you hit the bottom of yourself, not to punish you, but because the bottom is the only place where real foundations can be laid. You cannot build something true on shifting sand. And you, my child, were shifting with every wind that passed through your life, desperate for approval, desperate for control, desperate to make sense of a story that I was still writing. And here is the thing you've been most afraid to face. While you were waiting for me to explain everything, I was waiting for you to stop needing an explanation before you could trust. Trust was never meant to come after clarity. Clarity comes after trust. And you've had it backward for so long that you've been exhausting yourself trying to see the whole staircase before taking a single step. But the staircase was never yours to see. It was yours to climb, one trembling foot at a time, in the dark, with nothing but my hand in yours and the promise that I would not let you fall. You've been living in a state of constant negotiation with your own life, bargaining with circumstances, trying to predict outcomes, treating your future like a problem to be solved instead of a story to be received. And that is why the signs you've been looking for have seemed so confusing, so contradictory, so absent. Because you've been treating signs as guarantees, as contracts, as proof that you're in control, when signs are simply markers along a path that belongs to me. You've been missing them because you've been demanding that they say what you want them to say. The closed door was a sign, but you called it a setback. The person who walked away was a sign, but you called it a loss. The opportunity that never materialized was a sign, but you called it a failure. You have been surrounded by signposts your entire life, reading them backward, cursing the journey, instead of asking what the journey was trying to teach you. And now, tonight, you are standing at the edge of something new. And the old way of seeing, the desperate, anxious, controlling way is no longer available to you. You can feel it, can't you? That strange sensation that the old patterns are not working anymore, that the strategies you've always used to manage your life have started to crumble in your hands, that the certainty you once had about what you wanted has begun to dissolve into something you can't name. That dissolution is not a crisis. It is a mercy. I am stripping from you the illusions you've been hiding behind, not to leave you naked and ashamed, but to clothe you in something real. You have been carrying a version of yourself that was never meant to survive this long, a version built on performance, on approval, on the exhausting work of appearing whole while crumbling inside. And I am finally, gently, with the patience of a father who has been waiting decades for this moment, helping you lay that version down. It will feel like dying. I need you to know that now, before we go any further, because you're going to feel the loss of who you thought you were, and you're going to want to grab it back, to cling to the familiar weight of your old identity, even though it's been crushing you. Don't. Let it go. Let the silence you once feared become the space where something new can finally breathe. Let the things you cannot control become the very things that teach you to trust. The truth I am bringing you tonight is not a set of answers to all your questions. It is an invitation to stop needing all the answers before you can finally rest. And that rest, the real rest, the one that sleep has never been able to give you, is closer than you think. But you have to stop running from the silence long enough to let it hold you. You have to stop demanding that the path be visible before you're willing to move. You have to accept that the greatest thing I am doing in your life right now is happening in the places you cannot see, in the parts of you that only the dark has been able to reach. And that, my child, is why you are still awake. Not because you're broken, not because you're lost, but because I am not done with you tonight. I am not done showing you what's been hidden. And you, finally, after all this time, are ready to see. You are about to cross a line tonight. And I need you to understand what that means, because crossing it will change everything about how you see your past, your present, and the future you've been so desperate to control. There has been a story you've been telling yourself, maybe for years, maybe for decades, a story about who you are, about what you deserve, about why things have happened the way they have. And that story has become so familiar, so woven into the fabric of how you understand your own life, that you stopped noticing it's even there. You've stopped questioning whether it's true. You've accepted it the way you accept the sound of your own heartbeat, constant, background, assumed. But that story, the one you've been carrying like a weight strapped to your chest, is not true. And the line you are crossing tonight is the threshold between believing the old story and finally, mercifully, seeing it for what it is. A construction you built to survive something you were never meant to carry alone. You built it in a season of pain, out of scraps of fear and fragments of things people said about you. Things you assumed about yourself when the silence was loudest. You built it to make sense of rejection, to explain abandonment, to give shape to the chaos so you could feel some semblance of control. And then you forgot you built it. You began to treat it as fact. You began to live inside it, like a prisoner who has been in a cell so long, they no longer remember there's a door. But tonight, I am showing you the door. Not because you finally earned it, not because you've suffered enough, but because the old story has served its purpose and now it is killing you slowly, bleeding you dry in ways you've been too exhausted to notice. You've been walking through your life with a script written by your wounds, and you've been following it faithfully, expecting it to lead you somewhere good, when all along the script itself was the cage. And here is what I need you to hear. In the deepest part of you, where truth lives, the rejection you experienced was never the final word about your worth. The failure that defined you for so long was never the full sentence of your story. The love you lost, the opportunity that closed, the dream that died, none of those things were verdicts. They were plot points in a story you cannot yet see the shape of. But you've been treating them as evidence. You've been gathering them like stones and building altars to your own unworthiness, offering sacrifices of your own hope upon them, believing that if you just accept how small you are, maybe the pain will stop demanding anything more from you. It hasn't worked. It has never worked. Because the pain was never meant to teach you how small you are. The pain was meant to hollow you out so something larger could take root. You've been misreading your own suffering for so long that you've forgotten suffering has a voice, and that voice has been screaming at you not to shrink, not to settle, not to accept the diminished version of yourself that your fears have constructed. Every loss you endured was not a statement about your value. It was a clearing of the ground. Every person who left was not proof you are unlovable. They were a removal of something that was blocking the view. Every failure was not a judgment on your capability. It was a demolition of a plan you built that was too small for what I was about to build through you. But you couldn't see that then because you were still inside the old story, still reading the events of your life through a lens that turned everything into confirmation of your worst fears. You can feel it, even if you don't have words for it. You've started to suspect in your quietest moments that maybe, just maybe, you are not who you thought you were. Maybe the version of yourself that has been running the show, the anxious overachiever, the people pleaser, the one who says yes when they mean no, the one who performs strength while drowning inside. Maybe that version was a costume, not a self. And the reason you are lying awake tonight, restless and unable to find sleep, is because that costume has become too tight, too hot, too suffocating, and your soul is trying to tear it off. Let it tear. Do not fight the unraveling. The unraveling is not your undoing. It is your becoming. Everything you thought held you together, the approval of others, the achievement of goals, the accumulation of things that prove you've made it, those were threads, not foundations. And I have been quietly, patiently pulling those threads loose for years, not to destroy you, but to free you from a structure that was never going to hold the weight of who you truly are. You have been afraid that if you stop being the person the old story demands you be, there will be nothing left. That is the lie you've been living inside. The truth is the opposite. When the costume falls away, when the old script is burned, when you stop performing a version of yourself that was written by fear and start simply being, What remains is not emptiness. What remains is the person I knew before the world taught you to be ashamed. What remains is the person you were before you learned to hide. What remains is the one I have been calling to all along, through every closed door and every silent night, through every disappointment that felt like abandonment, and every confusion that felt like chaos. I was calling you out of the old story. I was calling you out of the cell. And the reason it has taken so long, the reason you are only hearing this now, in the dark, on the edge of sleep, is because you had to exhaust the old story first. You had to try everything the old self could do. You had to succeed at the things that were supposed to make you feel whole, and discover that success left you hollow. You had to lose things you thought you couldn't live without, and discover that you kept breathing anyway. You had to hit the wall of your own limitations, your own strategies, your own desperate clinging, and find that on the other side of that wall, there was nothing to hold you but me. And I held. I have always held. Even when you cursed the silence, I held. Even when you gave up on prayer, I held. Even when you built a life that looked nothing like the one I whispered to you in dreams you've since forgotten, I held. Because I was waiting for this moment. The moment when the old story finally runs out of breath. When the costume becomes unbearable. When the walls you built become the very thing you need to escape. Because it is only from this place of holy emptiness that I can fill you with something real. So do not be afraid of what you are about to feel. Do not run back to the familiar weight of your old identity. Stay here in the unraveling. Stay here in the silence that once terrified you. Because on the other side of this night, you are going to wake up different. Not because the world around you has changed, but because the story you're carrying has finally been laid down. And for the first time in longer than you can remember, you will be light enough to breathe. Now I need to speak to you about something you have been avoiding. Something that has been sitting in the corner of your awareness, like a shadow you refuse to look at directly. And the reason you have been avoiding it is not because you are weak, but because looking at it has always felt like it would undo you. And you are right. It will undo you. But the undoing I am speaking of is not the destruction you fear. It is the dismantling of a house you were never meant to live in permanently. There is a wound you have been carrying, maybe from childhood, maybe from a relationship that fractured you, maybe from a moment where something was said or done that lodged itself in your chest like a splinter you learned to live around. You have built your entire adult life around that wound. You have made decisions to avoid feeling it again. You have chosen paths, people, and patterns based on the silent, desperate need to never be hurt in that same way. And in doing so, you have allowed that wound to become the architect of your existence. It has designed your defenses, written your fears, shaped your expectations. It has whispered to you in every moment of vulnerability that safety is more important than truth, that control is more important than surrender, that protecting yourself is more important than being known. And I have watched you live inside that architecture for years, watching you grow more cramped, more isolated, more exhausted by the constant work of maintaining walls you built so long ago you've forgotten they were ever meant to be temporary. But tonight, I am asking you to let me touch that wound. Not to hurt you, not to reopen it so you can bleed again, but to finally, fully, completely remove the infection that has been spreading through your life in ways you have never connected to the original injury. You have been wondering why certain patterns keep repeating, why you attract the same kind of people, why you react the same way to criticism, why you feel abandoned in rooms full of people who love you, why you cannot rest even when there is nothing actively threatening you. It is because the wound is still speaking. It is because a younger version of you, one who never got to hear that they were safe, one who never received the apology or the protection or the explanation they deserved, is still running the controls of your life from a place of fear that has long since expired. And you have been so busy managing the symptoms, the anxiety, the overthinking, the compulsive need to perform and prove, that you have never gone back to the source. You have been cleaning the wound without removing the splinter, and the splinter has been festering, poisoning the very things you have worked so hard to build. I know you are afraid to go back there. I know you have told yourself that the past is the past, that what happened happened, that there is no point in revisiting it. But here is the truth you have been hiding from. The past is not the past until you have truly, fully, in the presence of love that doesn't flinch, let yourself feel what you were never allowed to feel. You did not survive that wound by processing it. You survived by burying it. And burying it was a kindness you extended to yourself in a moment when you had no other options. But you are not that child anymore. You are not that wounded person with no resources, no support, no one to hold you. You are someone with enough strength now to finally look at what happened without being destroyed by it. And I am not asking you to do it alone. I have been preparing you for this moment for longer than you know. Every disappointment that taught you that your worth is not determined by human approval, every loss that showed you that you can survive what you thought would kill you, every season of solitude that forced you to sit with yourself without distraction, all of it was training for this. All of it was strengthening the muscles you will need to do what you have never been able to do before, to go back into the place where you were broken and retrieve the pieces of yourself you left there. Because you left pieces, you left your trust there, you left your ability to be vulnerable there, you left your capacity for joy that isn't guarded, for love that isn't calculated, for peace that isn't earned through exhaustion. You left those things in the moments when it was too dangerous to carry them. And you have been walking through life incomplete, wondering why everything feels harder than it should, why connection feels so costly, why rest feels so impossible. The incompleteness is not a character flaw. It is a consequence of leaving yourself behind. And tonight, I am walking with you back to that place to reclaim what was stolen and what was abandoned. It will hurt. I will not lie to you about that. There is no way to retrieve something buried in pain without feeling that pain again. But here is what is different this time. You are not alone in it, and you are not powerless. The first time the wound happened to you, you were subject to it. You had no say, no agency, no way to stop it or change it. But this time, you are choosing to go back. This time, you are not a victim being acted upon. You are a grown person with a grown person's strength and a grown person's capacity to hold what could not be held before. Not as an idea, not as a concept, not as something you hope might be true, but as the presence that has been sustaining you every moment of your life. The one who has been keeping you alive through every sleepless night. The one who has been weaving beauty out of your brokenness without you even noticing. You are not going back to be broken again. You are going back to be healed. And healing is not the gentle, pleasant process you have been led to believe it is. Healing is a surgery. It is the removal of what has been poisoning you. It is the resetting of a bone that has been healing wrong. It is the confrontation with a truth you have been running from. But on the other side of that surgery is something you have almost forgotten exists. The ability to move without pain. The ability to breathe without the constant low-grade tension of holding yourself together. The ability to meet the future without dragging the past behind you like a chain. You have been carrying this wound for so long that you have forgotten what it feels like to be light. You have been living in a body that is braced, a heart that is armored, a spirit that is weary from the endless work of protection. And I am telling you tonight that you do not have to carry it anymore. Not because you can simply drop it and walk away. That is not how healing works. But because you can finally, with me beside you, turn and face it. You can finally say the words you have never said. You can finally feel the grief you have never allowed yourself to feel. You can finally, after all these years, give that younger version of yourself what they needed then and never got. Someone to witness their pain, someone to sit with them in it, someone to tell them that what happened was not their fault and that they were never meant to carry it alone. And when you do that, when you finally stop running and let the wound be tended, you will discover that the person you have been trying so hard to become was never something you had to achieve. That person was always there, buried beneath the defenses, waiting for you to come home. So tonight, before you sleep, I am asking you to take the first step, not the whole journey, not the complete healing in one night, just the willingness, just the turning, just the decision to stop protecting yourself from the very thing that has been protecting you from life. Let me in. Let me touch what hurts, and trust that the one who knit you together in the dark knows how to make you whole again. You are closer to the edge than you realize, and I need you to understand what that edge is, because your fear of it has been holding you back from everything you were made for. The edge I am speaking of is not a cliff you fall from. It is a threshold you cross. And everything in you that has been built by fear, by the old story, by the wound we have been tending, everything in you that values safety over surrender, control over trust, predictability over obedience, has been screaming at you to stay away from this edge. It has been telling you that if you cross it, you will lose yourself. That if you let go of the last remaining things you are holding on to, there will be nothing left. That if you finally, fully, without reservation, give up the illusion that you are in charge of your own life, you will be swallowed by chaos and never find your way back. Those voices have been loud, and they have been persuasive, and they have kept you standing in the same place for longer than you care to admit, close enough to the edge to feel the wind of something new, but never close enough to step over. But tonight, I am telling you that the voices that are warning you away from this threshold are not your friends. They are the echoes of a version of you that was built to survive a world that no longer exists. They are the guardians of a prison you have mistaken for a home. And the thing you are so afraid of losing, the control, the certainty, the ability to predict and manage and arrange your life into something that feels safe, that thing was never really yours. It was a borrowed illusion, a temporary scaffolding that was always meant to be dismantled once the real structure was strong enough to stand on its own. And the real structure, my child, is you. Not the you that manages and performs and controls. That is a role, not a person. The real you is the one who has been growing in secret, in the dark, in the places no one else sees, while you were busy worrying about whether you were doing everything right. The real you has been watered by every tear you thought was wasted. The real you has been strengthened by every weight you thought would crush you. The real you has been shaped by every silence you thought meant I had abandoned you. And now that real you is ready to emerge. But emergence requires a breaking. A seed does not become a tree by staying safely encased in its shell. It breaks. It cracks open. It sends roots down into the dark and shoots up toward a light it has never seen, operating on a trust that has no evidence except the inexplicable pull within itself to grow. You are that seed, and the breaking you have been experiencing, the crumbling of plans, the dissolution of relationships, the collapse of identities you thought were permanent. That breaking was not punishment. It was the shell cracking. It was the only way the life inside you could finally breathe. And now you are standing at the edge of something that terrifies you, not because it is dangerous, but because it is unknown. You have spent your entire life trying to make the unknown known, trying to reduce the mystery of your existence to a set of variables you could control, trying to turn the wild, unpredictable, beautiful chaos of a life surrendered to me into something manageable, predictable, safe. And I have been systematically, lovingly, relentlessly removing your options for safety. Not because I want you to be unsafe, but because the safety you have been chasing has been an illusion, and the safety I offer is something you cannot comprehend until you stop trying to manufacture it yourself. The safety I offer is not the absence of storm. It is the presence of me in the storm. It is not the guarantee that you will not suffer. It is the promise that your suffering will not be wasted. It is not the assurance that you will understand everything that happens to you. It is the knowledge that you are understood completely by the one who holds the universe in place. And that kind of safety, the safety of being held rather than controlling, requires you to let go of the very thing your fear has been clinging to most desperately, the need to know. You have been demanding to know the future before you step into it. You have been demanding to see the outcome before you commit to the process. You have been demanding guarantees, assurances, signs that everything will work out exactly as you hope before you are willing to take the risk of trusting me completely. And that demand has become a barrier between us, not because I am unwilling to give you what you need, but because what you need is not a preview of the future. What you need is the capacity to trust in the dark. What you need is the certainty that the one who created the stars and set them in their courses is capable of ordering your footsteps without your assistance. What you need is to stop treating your life like a problem to be solved and start receiving it like a gift to be unwrapped, one moment at a time, without needing to know what is in the next box before you have fully opened the one in your hands. The edge you are standing on is the edge between control and surrender. It is the line between the life you have been desperately managing and the life that has been waiting for you to stop managing so it can finally begin. And I know that letting go feels like death. I know that releasing the illusion of control feels like you are falling. But I need you to understand something about falling. You have never been standing on solid ground. The ground you thought was solid was always shifting, always unstable, always one unforeseen event away from crumbling beneath you. The only solid ground there has ever been is me. And the only way to stand on that ground is to stop trying to stand on your own. So tonight, I am asking you to do the thing you have been avoiding your entire life. I am asking you to let go, not of your responsibilities, not of the people you love, not of the life I have given you, but of the illusion that any of those things are yours to control. I am asking you to release your grip on the outcome, to stop rehearsing conversations in your head, stop trying to predict what will happen, stop exhausting yourself by running simulations of futures that do not exist. I am asking you to trust that the same hand that formed you from dust and breathed life into your lungs is capable of guiding you through whatever comes next without your constant, anxious interference. I am asking you to believe that I love you too much to let your life be determined by your fears, and that I am too powerful to be thwarted by your mistakes. You do not have to have it all figured out. You do not have to know the 5-year plan. You do not have to understand why certain doors closed and others opened, why certain people stayed and others left, why certain prayers seemed unanswered and others were answered in ways you did not expect. You only have to do one thing: step. Just one step. Not the whole journey, just the next step. Taken in the dark, with nothing but my voice saying, "This way," and your heart finally quiet enough to hear it. That step is what you have been avoiding. That step is what every fear in you has been organized to prevent. And that step is the only thing standing between you and everything you have been asking me for. So take it. Not tomorrow, when you feel more ready. Not when the circumstances align. Not when you have more certainty. Not when the fear finally leaves. The fear will not leave until you take the step. The clarity will not come until you move. The answers you have been begging for are not on the side of the threshold where you have been standing. They are on the other side, waiting for you to arrive. And you will never arrive by standing still. So tonight, before you sleep, make the decision. Not the performance of the decision, not the intention, not the promise you have made 100 times before and broken. The real decision. The one that changes the posture of your soul. The one that says, I am no longer going to live as though my life depends on me. The one that says, I trust you more than I trust my fear. That decision is the step. And when you take it, you will discover that the edge you were so afraid of was not the end of everything. It was the beginning of everything you were actually made for. And now, my child, we have reached the place where everything I have been saying to you tonight finally gathers into something you can carry with you when sleep finally comes, and when you wake to a morning that will not look the same as the mornings that came before. I have walked you through the silence that was not absence, but preparation. I have shown you the old story that was not truth, but a cage you built to survive. I have led you to the wound that has been festering beneath the surface of your life, not to break you open again, but to finally, fully drain the poison that has been leaking into everything you have tried to build. I have brought you to the edge of surrender, the threshold between the exhausting work of control and the terrifying freedom of trust. And now, in this final moment, before the night closes over you, I need to tell you what all of this has been for. Not in vague promises or distant hopes, but in the specific, intimate truth that has been forming in the quiet spaces between us while you slept through so much of what I was doing. There is a version of your life that you have been unable to imagine, not because you lack imagination, but because the imagination you have been using was built by fear, and fear cannot imagine what freedom looks like. Fear can only imagine variations of safety, smaller risks, quieter dreams, lives that fit within the boundaries of what you already know you can survive. But I did not create you to survive. I created you to thrive. I created you to live in the kind of fullness that makes your chest ache with the beauty of it. The kind of life that you have glimpsed in your best moments and dismissed as impossible because you have been measuring possibility by the limits of your own strength. But your strength was never the measure. Your control was never the engine. Your understanding was never the foundation. I am the foundation. I am the engine. I am the measure. And the life I have been preparing for you, the life that has been taking shape in the hidden places while you are focused on your failures and your fears, that life is closer than you think. The transformation I have been working in you was never about changing your circumstances. It was about changing you. Because the circumstances you have been begging me to change were never the problem. The problem was a version of you that was too small to hold what I wanted to give you. And I have been expanding you, not through comfort, not through ease, not through the slow, pleasant accumulation of blessings. I have been expanding you through pressure, through fire, through the kind of stretching that feels like tearing, but is actually the only way a soul grows large enough to contain the life I have in mind. You have felt like you were being torn apart because you were being torn apart. The small self, the fearful self, the controlling self, the self that was built by the wound and the old story. That self had to come apart so the real you, the one I knew before the world got its hands on you, could finally stand in the light. And that real you is not a project. It is not something you have to achieve or earn or become through effort. It is something you have to allow. It is something you have to stop fighting. It is something you have to finally, fully, without reservation, let me complete in you. This is what surrender actually is. Not defeat, not giving up, not admitting that you are too weak to manage your own life. Surrender is the moment when you stop fighting the one who has been fighting for you all along. Surrender is the recognition that the battle was never yours to win, that the burden was never yours to carry, that the future was never yours to secure. Surrender is the exhale you have been holding since you were old enough to believe that everything depended on you. And when you exhale, when you finally let go of the weight you were never meant to hold, you will discover something that is going to undo you in the best way possible. You will discover that you are held, not by your own effort, not by your own strength, not by your own desperate, exhausted striving, but by me, by the one who has been holding you every moment of your life, even the moments when you were certain you were falling, by the one who has been carrying you through every valley, even the valleys you walked into by your own choices, by the one who has been weaving your story into something beautiful, using threads you threw away as worthless and colors you didn't even know existed. You have been living as though you were alone in the universe, responsible for your own survival, accountable for your own meaning, burdened with the impossible task of making your life matter. And you have been exhausted by it. You have been running on empty for longer than you can remember, because the life you have been trying to live was never meant to be lived alone. It was never meant to be lived by your own resources. It was never meant to be a solo performance. It was meant to be a partnership. It was meant to be a dance where you follow the lead of one who sees the whole floor, who knows the music, who has been choreographing your steps since before you took your first breath. And tonight, I am asking you to stop dancing alone. I am asking you to stop checking the mirror to see if you look like you're doing it right. I am asking you to stop comparing your steps to the steps of everyone around you. I am asking you to simply, quietly trust the hand that is already on your back, guiding you into movements you could never have choreographed for yourself. The truth that I have been holding back until now, the truth that you are finally ready to hear, is this: you are not behind. You are not lost. You have not ruined your life. You have not missed your chance. Every detour was a destination. Every delay was a deepening. Every closed door was a redirection. Everything you thought was a mistake was being woven into a pattern you cannot yet see, but will one day stand in awe of. The story I am writing with your life is not a story of failure redeemed. It is a story of faithfulness from beginning to end. Faithfulness that did not depend on you getting everything right. Faithfulness that did not waver when you doubted. Faithfulness that did not abandon you when you ran. I have been with you in every moment of your life. Even the moments you are ashamed of, even the moments you have tried to forget, even the moments you thought I had turned away. I have never turned away. I have never stopped working. I have never stopped loving you. And the love I have for you is not the love of a distant watchmaker who winds the clock and walks away. It is the love of a father who cannot stop looking at his child. It is the love of a potter who will not release the clay until it is exactly what it was meant to be. It is the love of a shepherd who will leave the 99 to find the one who wandered, and who carries that one home on his shoulders, rejoicing. You are that one. You have always been that one. And tonight, before you sleep, I want you to rest in that. Not in the anxiety of what tomorrow holds, not in the weight of what you still think you have to fix, not in the endless loop of self-assessment and self-improvement and self-doubt. Rest in the simple, radical, unshakable truth that you are loved by the one who made the stars. And that love is not waiting for you to be better to arrive. It has already arrived. It has always been here. It has been holding you in every silence, in every loss, in every moment you thought you were alone. So close your eyes now, not with the tension of unfinished business, but with the release of a life finally surrendered. Not with the checklist of everything you still need to do, but with the peace of knowing that the one who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. Not with the fear of what you might lose, but with the trust that what I have for you is better than anything you could hold on to. Sleep, my child, not because everything is resolved, but because everything is held. And in the morning, when you wake, you will wake different. Not because the world changed while you slept, but because you finally let yourself be changed. And that is the beginning of everything you have been waiting for.